item 2 of the agenda. And I now give the floor to Ms. Rosemary DiCarlo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Secretary General Guterres, unfortunately, was unable to be in New York today, but I will deliver his statement. Thank you. 4 years after the Russian Federation launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the war remains a stain on our collective conscience. Day after day, year after year, we have witnessed the cascading consequences of this blatant violation of international law, including the UN Charter. Shattered lives, devastated communities, and deepened regional and global instability. The human toll is catastrophic. Despite unprecedented diplomatic efforts, last year was the deadliest for Ukrainian civilians since 2022. More than 15,000 civilians have been killed in Ukraine since the start of the invasion, and more than 41,000 injured. Millions have been forced to flee from their homes. Millions more require life-saving assistance. Human rights violations are rampant. The plight of Ukrainian children is particularly dire. More than 3,200 children have been killed or injured. More than 1/3 of Ukrainian children remain displaced, and an estimated 2.2 million require humanitarian assistance. A whole generation has lost years of education as schools have come under fire. Mr. President, this winter, the Russian Federation intensified strikes against Ukraine's civilian energy infrastructure. Large-scale attacks have killed and injured scores of civilians and deprived millions of electricity, heating, and water for prolonged periods, including in the capital, Kyiv. In sub-zero temperatures, strikes on electricity, heating, and water systems turn access to basic services into a matter of life and death. Civilians in the Russian Federation are also increasingly affected by reported Ukrainian strikes. International humanitarian law is unequivocal. Attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure are strictly prohibited. I condemn all such attacks, no matter where they occur. I urge both sides to implement an immediate moratorium on all such attacks. Mr. President, the ongoing fighting also poses direct risks to the safe and secure operations of Ukraine's nuclear sites. This unconscionable game of nuclear roulette must cease immediately. I commend the International Atomic Energy Agency and its teams for their critical efforts on the ground, despite the serious dangers involved. Mr. President, even as the fighting rages, the UN is working closely with the government of Ukraine to repair damaged infrastructure, keep people warm, and sustain critical services. Despite limited access and the deteriorating security situation, we are also working with local partners to deliver food, water, medical supplies, and other humanitarian aid, including to those in frontline communities. And I urge member states to fully fund the humanitarian response. Mr. President, throughout the war, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights has reported widespread human rights violations, torture, sexual violence, and even executions of prisoners of war and civilian detainees. These acts have gone with virtually no accountability. I welcome ongoing prisoner exchanges and urge that all prisoners of war and detainees be treated humanely and released in accordance with international humanitarian law and international human rights law. Any Ukrainian children deported or forcibly transferred to the Russian Federation and occupied areas of Ukraine must be returned home to their families without delay. I command efforts to facilitate such returns and family reunifications. We will continue to work closely with all relevant actors to ensure that this happens in a safe, swift, and verifiable manner. I urge the sides to continue to work constructively to address these concerns as a matter of priority. Mr. President, a year ago, this Council adopted Resolution 2774, imploring a swift end to the conflict and urging a lasting peace between Ukraine and the Russian Federation. I commend the ongoing diplomatic efforts by the United States and others to end the war. We need concrete measures to de-escalate the fighting without delay and to create the space for diplomacy. The longer this war continues, the greater the suffering and the greater the risks for regional and international peace and security. As complex as the path may be, our collective obligation is clear. Use every diplomatic tool to end the war. United Nations expertise is readily available to support the ongoing peace efforts. Our tools are at the disposal of the parties and mediators. The parameters of peace in Ukraine are not a mystery. It must be in accordance with international law, including the UN Charter and relevant UN resolutions. And it must uphold the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders. Enough with the death, enough with the destruction, enough with the broken lives and shattered futures. It is time for an immediate, full, and unconditional ceasefire, the first step toward a just peace that saves lives and ends the endless suffering. Thank you.
Well, I thank Ms. DiCarlo for her briefing, and I shall now